I'm Jennifer Riveros. Welcome to Pawsitive Tales ELC Podcast. Today I'm so excited because we're having a teacher today. So please introduce yourself, Mr. Rendon.
Sure. My name is Daniel Rendon. I'm an English teacher here at Elizabeth Learning Center. I'm actually a former student as well. So I graduated in 2003, a long time ago. And I came back to teach. And I think I've lost count of the years, but this is my 13th year being a teacher. And this year is my 6th or 7th year teaching here at ELC as an English teacher.
Can you tell us what subject you teach?
Sure. I teach 12th grade English, and so that's a class called ERWC. So it's more of an expository reading and writing course. That's what ERWC stands for. I teach AP Literature, and then I teach ELD. I teach two levels of ELD. I teach ELD for the newcomers, so students that just arrived into the country, and then I also teach ELD for the 11th and 12th graders. So
that's great.
Yes.
Sir. So just to start, our first question will be, what are your favorite 3 books?
Okay, so I was looking at this question. I was able to come up with 2, so maybe the question can be, what are your 2 favorite books? So I have a hard time picking favorite books. I imagine if I were a parent, it would be like picking a favorite child. So I like to go by like the last 2 or 3 books that I really enjoyed. And so the last book that I read that I really enjoyed is this book called James. It's by an author called Percival Everett. And it's actually a retelling of an old American novel, right, from the 1800s. It's based on the adventures of Huckleberry Finn. So it's a story that's told through the perspective of Huckleberry Finn and how he goes through life with his... he actually finds an escaped slave. So they run away together. And this book is actually a retelling, and it tells it from the perspective of the slave. So it actually gives like a different perspective from the story. It's really interesting. It's really good. I think it talks a lot about freedom, and I really enjoyed reading that book last summer. And then I also recently read a book called Liliana's Invincible Summer. So that book is actually a Pulitzer Prize winning book, and that's the story of a woman that goes and she doesn't try to solve the murder, but her sister was killed in the 90s, and they never found, I guess the family never got closure. So she went to Mexico and she tried to kind of figure out what happened to her sister. That book talks a lot about like femicide in Latin America. It talked a lot about like domestic violence within relationships. And, it's just her struggle to kind of find closure, but also find out she tries to go through all the events leading up to her sister's death. And she's not trying to figure out who killed her because she kind of has an idea. Maybe just getting, like I said, some closure on the idea that her sister died, so long ago. And then the phrase Liliana's Invincible Summer actually refers to, her sister's joy, like the joy that she had while she was living. And so I thought it was a really beautiful book. It really made me like look back at my life and maybe get a different perspective on it.
Oh, that's so cool. You can definitely see like the difference between the topics.
Yeah.
Those are very deep topics to touch in the book.
Yeah.
They really make you reflect.
Yeah.
Also, the first one that you mentioned, the one from the slave's perspective.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very deep. That's very deep. Nowadays, even more. It was just Black History Month, so those are strong books.
I like to read. I'm an English teacher, so that's one of my favorite
strong.
hobbies.
So now that you say that it's hard to pick favorites, either way, I might ask, what's your favorite one? What's the top one?
Yes, so I did have to think about this one for a little bit just because I've read so many books. Like, as an English teacher, I went through my undergrad. I've had to read books. I read books for fun when I was younger as well. And I've read countless number of books. But one of the books that's stuck with me recently is a book called Parable of the Sower. And that one's by this author named Octavia Butler. And so this book takes place in the not too distant future. It's like a kind of like a post-apocalyptic book about this person that can kind of sense other people's emotions. She feels what other people are feeling, but the world's kind of ended. It takes place here in the United States. And because of different like social and political issues, there's like kind of lawlessness now running like around. It actually takes place here in Los Angeles in the future. So it's kind of sci-fi, but for the most part, it really just talks about our society and the way that we kind of group ourselves and how we function as a society. And you know, this ultra conservative Christian organization has taken over the government. And so something I found really interesting in that book is that she talks about this president that's coming to power, and he gets elected with the slogan "Make America Great Again." But this book was written in 1993, I think it is. It was written in the 90s.
Oh my gosh.
So these ideas, you know, maybe not new ideas. And so like if you were able to read books like these, it can actually show you like the past, but also the future and also the present, right? What we're going through now.
And it also, like this parallelism that it has with the real world and the present, it can also give us a look of what will happen now and give us ideas of what to do.
Yeah.
That's
It's kind of like not like a blueprint, but maybe like a map or a different way of thinking, or you know, authors do the thinking, they think out the ideas for us, and so you're able to see them play out throughout the course of a story. So that one was very interesting. So she actually goes on a journey, right? She has to leave her home. She has to travel across California, and you know it's dangerous, and because there's not really a sense of government as there is now, she goes through a lot of different trials. It was a very good book. It's also actually been banned by some school boards for it being inappropriate. But there's a graphic novel version, and then there's the regular version, I guess. So
hopefully if any listener can read it.
I wanted to ask Mr. Completo if it's actually in the library right now.
Is it in the library, mister?
Which one is it?
Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler.
I'll have to take a look in the catalog.
Oh, hopefully it is.
Yeah.
It sounds like a very powerful book to read now.
Yeah, yes, definitely. A lot of the themes of the book speak to our times now.
So now that you mentioned that throughout your career and your entire life you have read so many books because your career and what you dedicate yourself.
Yeah.
What book would you recommend?
Oh, okay. So I had to think about this one as well. This actually coincides with another question that I saw on the list that I didn't suggest when we were talking about questions, but it's what book do I like to teach? And so I think this is the same book. It's actually House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. Kind of a poetic book. She wrote little vignettes that tell a story about a community. They all revolve around a girl named Esperanza. So she's a Latina. I think she would call her a Chicana from when she wrote the book. You know, and she's going through puberty. She goes through different challenges. She goes through sexual assault. And so the book kind of deals with a lot of issues of growing up. So it's a coming of age story. But I've taught this book, and also I recommend the book just because I think it's really easy to read. But if you wanted to take you know, more time and actually go through the different vignettes, right? A vignette's kind of like a picture, like a watercolor. When I think of the word vignette, I think of like a watercolor. So she kind of paints this picture of what's happening in this girl's life, and it takes place over the course of maybe a year or two. So you kind of see her deal with all of these issues: domestic violence. She deals with poverty, racism. So everything that she went through, it's kind of based on the author's life, and she grew up in Chicago. Very interesting, and I highly recommend that book. And it's also one of my favorite books I like to teach. It's really accessible. Again, the chapters are maybe one page, maybe 1.5 pages, and because of that, the students are able to digest it. And then for those students that want to read like further into the text, it's also very accessible.
Oh, that's so cool. Like to teach that to kids that might be going through that same stage.
Exactly.
Even if they're not a girl, even if they're not a Mexican raised in the U.S., or even if they're not necessarily the protagonist, I'm pretty sure that us as teenagers, we can see ourselves in some of those stories, and that can help us to know that we are not alone.
Yes.
That's not only us.
A lot of the themes are really universal, and the book's been published, I think, in more than 20 languages, and it's sold millions and millions of copies. So it's definitely a favorite, not just of mine, but I know of a lot of people.
That's so cool. Moving on to some of more personal questions.
Mm-hmm.
Who inspired you to read, or why did you start reading?
So when I was thinking about this question, right, as I was thinking about the past, I don't know if there's one specific person that inspired me to read. I do remember when I was a really young child, some of my first memories are watching TV, right? Because that's what kids do. And my mom, my aunt would babysit us, and so we'd be running around. So my first memories of trying to read are reading things on the TV, like or getting like sounds and phonics from shows like Sesame Street. And so things like that really, I don't know, I would see the letters and I would try to kind of understand. I remember trying to understand what they were saying, like why these images were on the screen. And so eventually, once you see enough episodes of Sesame Street, you're like, okay, these are letters, and then they start putting the letters together. And I think that kind of just like, and once I started on that path, and I just wanted to keep reading more and more. And so I think just the world around us and being surrounded by words and by literature and by literacy, I think that's kind of what drove my passion for reading.
Oh, but it's actually like a very natural process for you. Like just the world around you made you wanna read more. That's very unique. Very much kids will see colors and characters in screen, and they will be like, oh my god, that's a color, that's a character, that's a monster, and just focus on other things.
Yeah.
So I will call that like a natural interest. Like
I think it's my natural, like, I think I'm a chismoso. Like, I want to know everything. I'm very inquisitive. And so I think part of my inquisitive nature is like wanting to understand what's happening always around me,
Oh, that's so
I'm
cool.
very like, I like to be aware of my surroundings. I like to listen to people, or I like to see people. I like to people watch. So I think all of that has to do with my love of reading. Because, once when you get to read a book, like you get to see what the character's thinking, what they're going through, how they're feeling. So I think it's all connected, really.
So would you say that for your entire life you have been an avid reader, or did it start specifically like a point that it was like more?
I think when I was younger, right, the internet didn't exist how it exists now. That's how old I am. So it really was, I think, my form of escape. It was my social media, like my Twitter or my Instagram or my Facebook, whatever you want to call it, right? But if you had a book with you, right, no matter where you were at, no matter if you were at the doctor's office or you were bored in class, or you were waiting for your parents to pick you up after school, we've all been through those things. I think nowadays kids pull out their phones and they can play a game, or they can like talk to their friends, but we didn't have that because, again, cell phones, the internet didn't exist how they exist now. And so I always had a book with me. And so a book was what I used. That was my form of entertainment, right? Before the world became what it is now with technology.
And that actually makes a lot of sense now that phones being banned and all of us are crying over our phones. I think maybe some students that like to read but didn't do it as a hobby that much, maybe they will start reading more because they cannot take a book away from us.
I mean, that's what I tell the students. I'm like, oh, you're bored. You don't have your phone. Like, here's a bookshelf. Like, pick something off of the bookshelf.
Absolutely.
And so a lot of students have yelled at me that no, they're not going to pick up a book. But hopefully, if there's less distractions, they might pick up a book. But that's what I used to do when we didn't have computers back then either. And so if I were to finish an assignment early in class, I just had my book in the corner of my desk. And so whenever I would purposefully finish early to get back to reading my book. So my book was my main attraction, and the schoolwork was like something I needed to do to get to the book.
Oh, that's such a natural love for reading. It's amazing. What would you say that is your purpose for reading?
I guess one of my main reasons for reading would be to learn new ideas. I love, learning and figuring things out and understanding how different things work, whether it be people or societies or groups, whatever it may be. I think books give you that knowledge, right? So if you want to know about anything in the world, literally all you have to do is pick up a book. So that's one of my purposes. Another one, which I think I've kind of touched upon already, was kind of like a form of escape. So again, right? You're bored, you're at the doctor's office, there's nothing to do, you don't want to watch the TV because you can't change the channel. So you can bring up a book and then you get to escape into that world. I know it's like cliche, but I think it's a really good way to enter a new world. Like you get to read, and for a couple of minutes you get to forget where you're at, and you get to actually go into another world, and it might be a more interesting world, right? Because you get to pick which world you go into, depending on which book you choose. And also just I guess this one probably connects to my first reason, was just learning about different experiences, the different experiences of different people, right? I'm one person with one set of, one existence, one way of being, right? Whatever makes up who I am, I cannot be someone else. I can't be, a person of a different experience. But one way to learn about them is through literature. So, you get to pick up a book, and the protagonist might not be someone that you are, right? Or you might not be able to relate to them, but through reading the book, you can kind of figure out, what they're going through, what that's like. And so literature can really help you to be more empathetic and understand, different perspectives. So I think that's another one of my purposes for reading.
Absolutely. I can absolutely relate to your purposes. I am an absolute nerd, an absolute history nerd.
Okay.
And on most of our exams, for the AP exams, for the DBQs, the document-based questions, they give us readings.
Yeah.
So they're either letters or books or pieces
primary sources, right?
Yes,
like documents
primary
like
sources.
that.
And what that lets me see is that humans have showed themselves through literature,
through their writing, through the things that they create.
Exactly. And as an art history nerd too, art is the only thing that actually stays in the world. More like personal experiences and how normal people see the world in the present and in the past have always been art, either literature or paintings.
Yeah.
So
like it's the things that we leave behind after our experiences.
Exactly. So what you say about how it is a way for us in the present to see other realities, that's absolutely true. Because when an author writes something, even if they are not the same person that they're writing about, you can see what they see in the world around them, or what the world they want to see, or that type of stuff. Like, it just allows you to see what the people are living in that moment, and it can help you to be more empathetic and go through other people's shoes and understand that there's other realities. This is really cool. I love that.
Yeah,
I love these purposes.
I think it connects a lot to, I think about social media and how, social media is so important to a lot of people. And I think literature and social media kind of overlap in the ways that they allow us to see other people's lives, right? How many times have you seen a get ready with me video, or follow, like, right, when they pick up the phone, they're like, follow me, like on my day, I don't know, my job, and then you get to see what they do at work and things like that. Or like, follow me, I'm gonna go to the mall, and so they go to the mall and they show you like what life is like in their mall, like. And so I think it's natural for humans to want to know other people's perspectives, other people's like realities, and social media can help us do that, and I think literature can also help us to do that.
Now, going through like another part of literature, now that you're a teacher, has any student recommend you a book and that has like mark you by any chance?
Wow, I haven't thought of it that way. I think I have discovered books through wanting to share them with my students. So there are certain graphic novels that we've read before. They kind of, maybe not directly, but indirectly, they help me to kind of pick works that I think might speak to them. So I used to work at an adult school, and we had a lot of students that were Chinese immigrants. And so, I was trying to get them to read, and, English was a barrier too, because they had just entered the country. And so what we decided to do was we were going to read this graphic novel called American Born Chinese. And so, it had pictures in it, so it was easy to understand, but there was still writing and literature inside of it. And there was also Chinese symbols and characters inside of the graphic novel as well. So we kind of read it together, and then we learned together. They would teach me the Chinese part, and they, the different symbols that appear throughout the book. Like, the book's a little complicated, but there's a character, and he's like kind of like a ninja, and he's like fighting. And at one point he either light something on fire or he threw a fireball, and then there was Chinese characters on the page. They're like, oh, it says fire here, and then obviously it said fire because he was throwing a fireball. But it was just interesting, you know. So maybe not direct. They haven't maybe recommended directly, but indirectly, I think, you know, we both kind of recommend books to each other, you know, through our experiences, through who they are.
That's so sweet.
That's a good question. I would have to think. Now I need to know. The last book I was recommended by a student, but I didn't read, was a student 2 years ago. She told me to read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, I think it was.
Yes.
And I think that's the title of it. She told me to read it, and I didn't get around. I think I downloaded it or something, but I think I got busy. It's hard to, you know, I love to read, but it's hard to read during the semester for me because I'm reading so much. You know, I have to read student essays. We're reading Heart of Dark. We just read Heart of Darkness. So Heart of Darkness is what I'm reading. So sometimes when I go home, I don't feel like reading on my own.
Yeah, you get overwhelmed by reading so much. I can't imagine that.
I just read all day, every day student essays. You know, especially with the ELD kids, they show me like what they're writing, so I have to check every single word because they're unsure of the English part. So
yeah, I understand that.
it's a lot of reading. I read. I guess they say, you know, if you want to, if it's a hobby, you should keep it a hobby. Don't make it your work. But reading became my job, so now it's like part of what I do every day. You know?
The thing is that what we mentioned about it being a natural interest, so you might not get tired of it, like an absolute tired of, I don't want to pick a book anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to know anything about it anymore.
Yeah.
But you can absolutely get tired from your own hobby.
You know, but when I do, you know, when I do have time, like over winter break, I think I read 5 books. So I was trying to just get through them as fast as possible because I knew I was gonna not have as much free time. Also, a lot of it has to do with free time as well. So
yeah, reading takes time.
It's a dedicated time that I like to set aside for myself when I have it. Like when I have so much free time, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna read for the next hour or two, and I'm just not gonna do anything but read and get through this book.
Have you ever read a book and your English teacher parts came to your brain and you start analyzing?
Of course. That's how I read. You know how we've read Heart of Darkness together, but how I read in class is normally maybe not to that level, but I definitely this is a callback, or this is, look at this symbolism that they're using here, or look, this is a metaphor that they bringing back from the other part of the story, or this characterization here. I love the way they describe the character. So I do it, but maybe a lot less.
It happens to me too. Like when I was studying AP Lang last year. I was reading this book and I was like having those words fresh in my mind. So I was going through the book and I was not reading the words. I was just analyzing the words. But yeah, I can imagine that.
I guess, yes. But I think because I've read it so much that now it's all just one thing. Like it all...
it just makes sense.
Yes.
It's just natural. Just since you have read all of these books, is there a specific author that you would like to meet?
Okay, so I had 2 answers for this. So one of them was Sandra Cisneros, but I met her already. So I went to a reading a couple years ago. She released a memoir, kind of like a collection of writings and stories and letters. And so I went to a museum in Long Beach, and she was doing a reading of that. So I got to read that. I got to meet her there, actually. And that was, it's definitely a core memory, as the youth would say. But the other one, she's passed away now, but Octavia Butler. After I read Parable of a Sower, which I mentioned earlier, she wrote part 2 to the book. So she continues the story, because after the book ends and you're like, I want to know more. And so I read the second book, and after I read the second book, I was like, okay, I need to know what happens next. But unfortunately, she passed away while she was writing. Yeah, and actually, just like, not a fun fact, but she was actually based here, like in Pasadena, in the area here, and she's buried in Altadena. And the fires just happened here in Altadena. I was reading online that the fires got really close to her grave, so they actually almost destroyed like where she's buried. But Octavia Butler, yes, she's a pioneer in like sci-fi. She's an African American writer. I think she's incredible. Her stories are incredible.
Oh, that's so cool. Hopefully you get to know like an author that you would like also to meet as much as these two ladies. again, because you're a teacher, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like this question will be different. Like the answer will be different coming from you.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give to someone that doesn't like to read?
Mm-hmm. Put the phone down. The phone will be there. You know, sometimes I take social media breaks or I take phone breaks. You know, I'm like, I'm just not going to use my phone today. I'm just going to do everything. You know, I have the luxury of having my smartwatch. So if I do get a text message from somebody important or if I, need to do something with that, I have it on me. So I think give books a chance. Some students pride themselves on not having read. They're like, I've never read a book in my life. Like when I present a book to them, they're like, well, I've never read a book. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe try something new. Try, right? Right now, when with the phones being put away in the bags, I told them, try it out. You know, people have survived. I didn't have a cell phone until I was 18. So in that cell phone, I could only text with like the little 9 numbers. I had to do the with the one hand. And so I think if you were to open yourself up to new experiences, I know the phone's way more interesting and you can do a lot more things on a phone, but I think if you were to put your phone down and pick up a book, I think you might like it. You might enjoy it.
And absolutely, I agree with that because I was also the type of kid that was like, "Ah, I don't like reading. I have never read in my life. I was never good at I was always good at my Spanish classes back in Colombia, but we never like read a book in our classes. It was just like when I got to 12 that I watched this movie and it was like, oh my gosh, I want to read the book.
Okay.
And my father bought me that book for Christmas.
Uh-huh.
And it was so funny because I was expecting a doll or something, and my father just gave me a thick book.
What movie was it?
It was It.
Oh, by Stephen King.
By Stephen King.
Yes, of course.
Absolutely my favorite book.
Uh-huh.
And if you have seen that book, it is thick.
It's a thick book because the movie's like in 2 parts and each
Exactly.
movie's like 3 hours. So
Absolutely. So it's a thick book, and that was me, 12 years old, just looking at that book like this thick.
which was it the new movie or there's an older movie too? No.
There's an older movie, but the older movie also touched only like the first part or a little bit of the second part. That's the one that.
Well, not for me. It just came out, but you're saying this was when you were
Yeah, I wasn't
younger.
even born.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
of course,
I watched
It movie.
the second one. And
Me too.
I was so intimidated by it because I have never read it and it was huge. So I didn't read it for like a year until I got to 7th grade and I was like so bored. So bored. Like I was scrolling on YouTube and listening to music and I was like, this is not enough. Like I'm pretty sure kids can relate to me that even though for many adults we might seem that we have like a lot of entertainment, we get tired too. And I'm pretty sure many of us can relate to getting tired of just like scrolling on TikTok, closing TikTok, going to Instagram, scrolling on Instagram, getting tired of Instagram, then going to YouTube Shorts, scrolling on YouTube Shorts. And even though that takes a lot of time, we're just bored. We're bored doing that.
You get to see a lot of the same things, or when you
Exactly.
see somebody on TikTok and then you see them on YouTube Shorts or on Instagram Reels, and you're like, I already saw this. Yes.
Yeah.
Why does this person keep popping up, or why does this
And
keep
it's
popping up?
like even though sometimes, or at least for me, it is that way that I get tired of so much information and so much. Is there so much negativity online that you could just like, I don't want to deal with this today. So absolutely yes. If kids want to like do something with their time because they're already tired of TikTok or Instagram, they're like, I don't know what to do, and they continue with that. Just pick up a book, like absolutely. And this is something that all of my other guests have said, that there's a story for everyone. And even kids that I'm pretty sure you have gotten in your ELD class that are like, oh, but they don't have the in Spanish version, or I don't know English enough to read this book. Either way, just grab a little book and go through it, even if it's a child's book, even if it's a big book, even if it's even a book that you have to read for any of your classes. Just read it, and maybe that can help you like it, because reading can make your classes so easier.
Yeah.
It is not only a hobby, but it's also a skill. So if kids understood that it's not just a story. It's not just words. It's not just a boring story.
Mm-hmm.
They could develop that skill of just reading.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I feel like absolutely put your phone down.
What did you say? There's a book for everyone. I agree.
Yes, absolutely. As a student, I can relate to that. But yeah.
Okay.
Is there any other comments that you want to do?
I think one is a suggestion. I had like a question that I think you should add to your list. You know, you already have a long list.
Yes.
One of them I think would be like, how do you prefer to read? Like, there's so many different ways of reading. You could read online. You can read on a. I read, for example, on a Kindle. I don't read physical books anymore, just because they're so much easier to get, and you can check them out from your public library through the website, and so I don't have to go to the library anymore. You know, you can find different articles and things that you can send to your Kindle. So I think that would be a good question. And I guess I had a question for you, and it was, what inspired you to make this podcast?
What inspired me to make the podcast? So as a nerd, I have like to read a lot. Like ever since I read it, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, this
Yeah.
is so cool. So I started reading more. When we got here, I started reading even more because I was really bored. I was really alone when I got here. So books were the only thing that helped me escape that loneliness and the boredom. And it also allowed me to learn more English. So I learned a lot of my English through reading. And of course through my classes. So with all of this, I have always liked to talk with people about things that I love. So my love for literature is something that I almost never can share with people. Because in my family, they don't read a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, father, buy me this book. And he's like, why do you want that? Like, look at it. And I'm like, but the story, but like, or I'm talking with my sister or with my friends, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm reading this book. You should also read it. Like, if you want it, I can give it to you. And they're like, it's okay. And I love talking about things that I love. So when Mr. Completo proposed the book club, I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. Because I can talk about anything but literature in like my environment.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, I also always wanted to do a podcast. I'm a yapper. I talk a lot.
A certified yapper. I heard that term.
I'm a certified yapper. If there was a paper that say the most yapper, that would be for me.
Well, if you're ever looking for another title for the podcast, maybe certified yapper would work.
Certified yapper.
Think about it.
That would be my personal podcast. That's an amazing idea.
Okay.
But yeah, so I always like to talk a lot, but I also like to listen a lot. I love listening to people's stories. I love listening to people talk about what they care and what they like, because usually people don't ask you that. Usually people, you're waiting for that conversation to come, but you don't ask that. So when Mr. Completo proposed a podcast, I was like, yes. He can confirm that. I was like, yes, whatever, yes.
Let's do it. Let's go.
I was just very excited to get to talk about something that I love, but also listen to people talk about what they love. So yeah, that's why I started the podcast with Mr. Completo.
Cool.
And I'm so happy
you
that
should
this
continue. I hope
happened.
it continues going forward. And if you take it with you, or if you pass it down, so like every year we get like someone else to make this podcast, and then you can make your own certified yapper podcast. I think
Absolutely,
that would be cool.
I would love to. Sadly, I got this opportunity when I was a senior. I mean, it's the time that it had to happen.
Yeah.
But either way, if any student is listening right now and wants to be a
Like
certified yapper too, absolutely come to the library. The opportunity is there. Every student that wants to either be a guest or either wants to be the host, it's there. The opportunity is there. But yeah. Thank you so much,
You're
Mister,
welcome.
for
You're
being
welcome.
here. It's a pleasure
Yes.
to have you
No,
here.
thank you for having me. I was like, oh my, what am I going to say? I don't even... Students never ask teachers, what can you come talk about your subject after school? Like, you know, as soon as the bell rings, people like to head out. And so for you were like, here, come talk about literature with me. I was like, okay.
No, what I'm so happy. Just as a fun fact, when I got to the school, the first English teacher that I had was you
Yes,
for
I remember.
ELT. And I was so nervous. I have never been in an English class before. So when I got there and you were like, oh my gosh, you're good at English. You're good at English. I was like, Vale, thank you so much. It took like a weight out of my shoulders because me as a freshman in a new country, just 1 month in the country, I was like so terrified of English. I was terrified. So I remember when I left your class and you were like, great job, I knew you would do it. I knew you were in this level. I was like, so happy.
I remember that.
I'm really happy to also have you in my senior year. I love your class. Reading Hair of Darkness was a great story, even though I hate Marlowe. And it's amazing. It's a pleasure to talk with you, Mister.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.